Um, What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Everyday Ultra Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Corcione, and I'm super pumped for this episode. Not just because this is someone in the ultra space that I've respected for many, many years. He is one of the most prominent coaches in the space. Him and his awesome wife as well, Megan. They are with Some Work, All Play on both the podcast, coaching. They've helped hundreds and hundreds of athletes complete ultra goals, whether it is sub ultra, ultra distance, whole 9 yards on there too. They have an amazing podcast that is one of the top ranked in the space as well, that covers science while also making running super, super fun. Incredible show. I listen all the time. And not only are they great at the coaching and also the media space as well, they're also great athletes. And our guest today is definitely a great athlete, coming off of a Leadville 100 course record, a course record that has stood the time for many, many years. Many, many years. It was stout. It wasn't even touched. It was very deemed to be a difficult course record. But not only did David Roche beat the course record, he did it on his very first 100-miler. Incredible performance. So we're going to talk about Leadville. We're going to talk a little bit about David's philosophy. We're going to dive into his just amazing brain when it comes to coaching and fitness and crushing races out there. So this is going to be an excellent episode with none other than the man himself, Mr. David Roche. David, thanks for coming on the pod, and congrats again, dude.
Thank you so much. The main thing I got from that was the quote, amazing brain. I feel like I need to update our website, like kind of how they have book snippets on the back of like where people write 5 paragraphs and they summarize it in a few words. I'm just going to quote it and say, amazing brain, Joe, everyday ultra. That's what I want. So no, thank you. It means the world. I'm, huge fan. Like I've heard from so many people that they love your podcast, love what you're doing in the world. So when you reached out, I was like, hell yeah, let's chat.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, that means a lot coming from you. Like I said before, amazing brain. You can use that whenever you want to. Because, yeah, man, as a coach myself and an athlete myself, I mean, I've learned a lot from you and just know tons of people who are coached by you who speak amazing things about it. So, and it's cool to see you, not only teaching people, but living out the lessons, by doing Leadville and doing all these other races. So I'm excited to dive in and everything. What I kind of want to know, like, I guess right off the bat is, and I'm sure you've gotten a lot of this question, but I'm just very curious, especially for people who maybe are listening to this, who are maybe going through a first of their distance, whether it be 100 miles, 50 miles and stuff like that. This was your first 100-mile race. And I'm curious for you, how did you come into it handling that great unknown, right? I know obviously you've worked with tons of athletes who have not just done 100 miles, but Leadville too. But like, when you think about tackling that great unknown, going to that extra distance, how did you kind of think about that in Leadville? And maybe how do you advise athletes who are going into the first of that distance to do it, not just to do it, but do it well, such as you did?
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 prongs there to think about. The first is there's nothing to fear. Look, I've DNF'd plenty of times. The first 100K I did was just last year, and I suffered so bad. And it was like, the classic walk and puke that everybody does. And I learned on the other end of that it's okay. You have nothing to fear. Like the worst that happens is it's a little hard. And the whole point of doing this sort of thing is that it's hard. Like the pain cave popularized by Courtney DeWalter is the point of the sport. If you don't want that, if that isn't part of your dream, maybe it's not for you, And like I really had to contextualize that because the reason it took me so long to get to this distance, I don't think I was ready for that yet. Right? Like I was scared of it. I'm not one of these guys or women on podcasts that says, I love pain. I go hallucinate and see my ancestors. Like, it's like, no, I kind of want to be comfortable. I kind of want to sit on the couch and eat Fritos. And so, that transition for me took time, took adversity, took DNFs, took a bike accident earlier this year, took a lot of that. And then, part 2 is that you can kind of just have faith in the body. Like I think so much of what I've learned as a coach is that the types of things we use to contextualize readiness, like weekly miles and all of that stuff, really kind of falls by the wayside when everyone enters the unknown. And everyone's entering the unknown in that training cycle every time they hit a certain distance, right? Like no one's running a 65-mile training run. And so, everybody's entering the unknown out there. So yeah, maybe I'm entering in a slightly bigger way because I've never experienced it. But at the same time, like, maybe it's kind of an advantage for it to be the first time because I don't have any preconceived notions of what it's supposed to feel like. I was just like, maybe it'll feel good the whole time. We'll see. I won't know till I get out there.
Oh my gosh, that's so, and it's a really good conceptual thing to think about, that everyone's going through that unknown, even if
Yeah.
they've done 100 miles, right? Like you said, like for the most part, people aren't doing the 100 miles in that training and that specific training block. Like, whatever past their long run is going to be that unknown. So I love that you kind of like make it almost like a shared experience out there, which probably makes it a little easier to stomach for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that connects to why I love the sport so much. Everybody feels the same thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
so anyone listening to this that chases cutoffs or is doing their first 5K or whatever it is, like, literally, we're feeling the same exact chemical sensations, right? I love to ground it in physiology because, like, if anything, the experience is easiest for me because I reach the finish line in 15 hours in whatever minutes. Like, I don't have to experience it quite as long.
Mhm.
But that's like such a liberating and exciting thing, is that, like, across this entire community, like, we're all united by that. So even for the people that disagree with me or hate my personality or whatever, part of me finds solace in the fact that, like, look, they're kind of facing the same edge, the same, like, limits of human existence that I try to face too. And so, yeah, it just gives me like a little bit of comfort. It's almost like, well, if this person and I have the same favorite podcast or the same favorite TV show, um, or the same part of the same fan club, maybe we share a little bit more in common. So at Leadville, like, I loved getting to go see the finish, the golden hour. Like, I was a wreck still, but I was able to get back out there. And for me, that's the most magical part of it, because they experienced the same shit I did. They just experienced it for longer.
Yeah, and I always say like the golden hour athletes, it's just incredible because they literally like, working longer than any other person out there. There's just like something beautiful about that too. But and that's awesome to hear, like someone who's at an elite caliber at your level to say like, hey, like I hurt out there. And I'm curious for you, like where did you start to feel that hurt on the race? And the
Mm.
reason why I ask this question is because I think, it can seem almost hard for kind of maybe the everyday athlete to think about that. Because listen, I'll give you an example. Like I saw you coming into Twin Lakes for the second time, and there was
Hmm.
that like steep pitch coming out, and you just like barreled on it, and everyone was like watching you. And I remember like turning up was like, oh my gosh, like this guy, that was nuts, like that was awesome. And like you just like spry up there. But like I'm curious, like, and even working with other elite athletes, like where do you see that typical kind of maybe point in 100 miles, like where it starts to hurt, and then also speaking about your experience too.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it has been reconceptualizing what pain actually is in
Mm,
athletics. That took me time. So, like, when you asked, did it hurt? Like, it didn't hurt like the car accident, It didn't hurt like a head injury. It didn't hurt like a broken bone in any sense. And I think
mm,
part of the magic of athletics is when you're choosing it, when it's of your own volition, when it's we get to do this, you gain some like magical power over your body's own sensations, and it becomes another piece of data rather than something that is like a judgment on you, or the types of things that just like are extremely hard about being human, right? So, thinking back, like, yeah, maybe you could say on Hope Pass, there were times where I felt things were just going a little strange at times, because I was
mm,
trying to run every step of it. And then, yeah, certainly at the end, like at mile 80 or so, I was going through the burps, the good old burps that every runner knows from my from fueling a lot out there. But in like a pain sense, no, I mean, it didn't hurt. And again, it gets back to why I think, I had a bad bike accident in April, and why I think it made a huge
mm,
difference is just at that point, I literally wanted the pain cave as someone that never did before. I was like,
mm,
I just want to enter it in my own choice. And
mm.
so, yeah, I mean, I think for every athlete, just trying to think about every opportunity you get, like every hill interval you do, every hill stride, just be like, this is a signal, but it's not bad. It's not actually bad. It's
Mm.
all fleeting. It's not your body is not telling you it's dying. It's just telling you, hey, you have some hydrogen ions you're creating that are going into your bloodstream. And, like, I don't fear that chemical equation. I fear a lot of other things. But that's one thing, like, you can gain just a little bit of like understanding of and love of eventually. Not love of the discomfort of it, but love of the fact that, like, you're a tough MFer who feels that thing and kind of looks at it and gives it a hug.
Yeah, I love that perspective on it, and I even love how you should talk about your perspective with the bike accident, because I do want to talk about that too, because I'm sure you've seen it and I see it all the time too. Is like there's so many athletes in the sport of ultra running who have gone through some sort of like real life pain experience, like in their life, whether it is addiction or accidents or like crazy just horrific things. And there's something that I feel like draws people to that like chosen type of like mental suffering out there
Yeah.
versus like maybe the other stuff on there. So I guess take us back to that bike crash too, for maybe those who aren't familiar, but how did that also relate? Cause I wanted to kind of also, take something that you said earlier when you were talking about, before you never really wanted to kind of enter that pain cave.
Hmm.
Like what was the click that wanted you to say like, okay, like now I'm ready. And then like how talk about that bike crash and how that kind of like enhanced that, related to that, or played a role into that too.
Definitely. Yeah. So I think the timeline's helpful here. So in January, I registered for the Leadville 50 mile or the Silver Rush to
Yep.
race my way into the 100.
Hmm.
And at that point, I had the course record on my mind, but maybe I thought it was a 1% chance. I don't know.
Yeah,
So many of the best ever have gone for it. It was always called unbreakable. I'm not that guy. I mean, at least I feel like an everyman. I feel like a man of the people. I don't know if I am anymore because
definitely
like
are.
but the point being, like, I don't feel like a freak that started as a freak, right? Like I've always had to
Mm,
work hard for it. It's always taken 4 or 5 years to do the next thing.
mm,
But I wanted that big goal this year. So that's where I was. And things were going well in April when I was out on a bike ride and a car made a left turn as I was just riding straight, didn't see me, launched me 100 feet. And yeah, I mean, it was just normal bad head injury, broken bones, lacerations, all that good stuff. And it was a tough return process. And I think maybe the toughest part of it was not the initial like trauma or anything. It was the fact that like my mental health suffered a
mm,
substantial amount in the months after as the brain healed, like very normal thing. And it's gotten better and better, but it was there, right? And
mm,
so as I approached the training block for the Leadville 100, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it at first, but then after I started to heal, I was like, yeah, I think I can still give this a try. And my 1% maybe went to 0.1%. But then as I trained, it was like, all right, maybe just maybe. And then I started to talk about my goal a little bit. That number went up as I saw people believed in me. And the like pain of the accident and the understanding of exactly what I was getting into also then got contextualized in that history where if it was 1% to begin with, that's because it's hard as hell, right? Like
mm,
if it was not hard, some of the other best athletes who are way better than me who have tried it would have gotten it. Matt Carpenter, who had it, the GOAT. He's like the best mountain runner that we've ever had.
mm,
And so if I'm going to get it, obviously it's not going to be something that comes easily on the day. And so that understanding just really gave me a like, all right, I actually need to think about that, right? Like, do I want
mm,
this? And I decided, hell yeah, I want it. I mean, not the course record, but I do want that feeling. And so the day before the race, I'd said I'd been very vocal about my goals because I wanted to model that for the world. But the day before the race, I said on Instagram, which I've never done before. I've never done like a pre-race Instagram post. That's just not my style as a coach. But I said, tomorrow, I don't care if I enter the pain cave at mile 20 or mile 90. I just want to enter the pain cave of my own volition. Right.
mm.
And so, I think basically the psychological part of that process was pretty important. Or it could be what Megan said on our podcast this week, which is she said she thinks I just got a little bit dumber after the accident. And so I wasn't being so thinky about everything.
Yeah, it's almost like I hear a lot of the times where people say like naivety is kind of bliss sometimes, because it's like you
Yeah.
just don't know what you're getting into. And like I do think sometimes maybe the overthinking, like I know for me in the past I've overthought myself in two ways where it gets into the thing. But I think the bigger thing, like you were mentioning too, is like having that belief, right? I even saw the Strava post that you had today too, of like all the people commenting, believing in
Yeah.
you, and you like talk about how that was a really big part, fitness aside, of you being able to pull this thing off, was that belief.
Yeah.
And I'm curious for you, like, and you mentioned kind of just like day by day taking it. How do you rebuild belief after going through something so crazy like that? And the
Yeah.
reason why, like, I'd love to hear this too is because sometimes people get injured, sometimes people get sick, sometimes people have extraneous life circumstances that maybe just knock training off kilter, and it makes that goal just seem like, can I do this thing? Like, how do you
Yeah.
build that belief back up from a low?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple combinations here. Let's start with like around the time of the accident, a little bit after, as I was healing, we also went through some really, really frustrating stuff online
Mm,
that, was related to the ultra community. And
mhm,
I think that was liberating in many ways because all along, I've always anyone who knows me knows I preach love and I live by it too. Like if you've ever reached out to me, I hope I've given you that love. And I think you probably have. Um, and I drew those lines very widely.
Mm.
And I think that experience and some of the messages we got in the process, classic internet stuff, not a big deal, but anyone who's ever gone through that sort of thing knows that it does affect you. And it made me realize that absolutely not. Community is something I'm going to draw much more narrowly, and I have to
Mm.
protect myself because it's not the way people view me, and that's okay. But I'm going to keep showing up authentically and draw those lines a little bit narrower. And so what I did lean into though was the fact that like love is everything, but you're allowed to you're allowed to have it be narrower
Mm.
than maybe I did before. So the example you used today was something I thought about during the race, which is there's this follower I have. I've never interacted with him. I don't follow him. He doesn't even have a photo. I don't want to say his name here. It's on Strava. And he just, on every one of my key workouts for Leadville, he clearly knows the course. He understood what he was looking at. And every single time he would comment something very simple. So Matt Carpenter's course record was 15:42. This guy, Roger, would comment 15:41. That was all he said. Or he'd make some other comment indicating he believed. And while I don't know Roger personally, like that's the type of thing, that's the thing I leaned into, you know? And what's cool out there is like, I think in the past, I've gone into bigger races and understood that what's waiting for me on the other end sometimes, you know, it's love from the people that matter, but then sometimes it's mean comments and
Mm.
personal attacks and all the things that every one of us face on some level, even if it's not public on the internet.
Mm.
And being liberated from that was essentially the not giving a fuck of it all was, look, the people that love me, like Roger, this person I never met, they're going to love me no matter what. If I ran a 25-hour time, Roger, I'm sure, would have done some really nice comment subsequently.
Mm.
And the people that hate me, they're going to hate me no matter what too.
Mm.
So, you know, I was able to lean into love out there without hesitation. So I think everyone should fear the man with nothing to lose. And it took me going through all that to realize that truly there is nothing to lose, that it's okay. It's all okay. You know, it's part of the process. And so, yeah, that was huge. But also you can probably hear a little like hitch in my throat. I think I just breathed in too much air at Leadville or something, because even 10 days later, I'm still like over here waiting until I go on mute to cough. Hundreds are wild, man. They are wild.
Oh, dude, well, you can let out a cough here too, like for sure. Yeah, but dude, I love that you said that. And by the way, as someone who I'd met David for the first time. For those listening, like right off the bat, man, like you were just so kind, so like just amazingly, just leading with love. So I can tell you that's a genuine thing, because right even before we hit record, David came and was like one of the nicest dudes that I've connected with on this podcast. But I love that you lean into that, and I also love to say it like that conceptualization of like even if this race doesn't go well, people are still going to love me. And, you know, the haters are just going to kind of be the haters, because I know like it's one of those, I think some people can almost feel like this weight of like, oh, I'm going to let these people down, or like,
Yeah.
and that can be like a scary thought. But to you, if it's like, hey, like I'm going to lead with love and I know these people are cheering me on, it's going to be there to that point. It's almost like you have nothing to lose. And at that point, it's like, it's so much easier to push yourself to that next level. Right.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it's cliche to always tie everything to failure, but like, I've probably DNF'd more times than anyone that has ever set a record like this, you
Mm.
know, like in my history, even though I haven't done that many long races. Like I just, you know, I've messed up a lot, and I've also succeeded some, but like the point being, every single time I do that, what's waiting for me on the other end is just like fucking joy
Mm.
from the people that care about me, that actually care about me. And the people that don't care about you, like, honestly, you can't really give a fuck about them.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're going to become a self-conscious bitch, which I have at times, you know? Like, I have totally become that person at times because I do care about what people think as much as I don't want to. And so, you know, I think I grew up a lot this year. Like, I'm 36 now, and it took this long for me to, like, truly embody the principles I want to embody, which is, like, look, I know we all die. The first line of our book many years ago was that every runner has the same finish line, death. And, like, you know, I always try to ground myself in that. But even knowing that, even knowing the impermanence of it all, like, you know, someone leaves a mean comment, I start to get like, well, maybe I am that person or whatever.
Mm.
And it took all this to be like, no, actually, I truly do love myself, you know, like we are enough no matter what. And that's what I try to tell everybody else. But for some reason, it took me a little bit longer maybe to get there in just an unconditional manner, you know? And
Mm.
so this race was a manifestation for me of what happens when I drop the burden of like giving a fuck, you know? And I think people
Mm.
sell that in the way I went out.
Yeah, for sure, man. I love that, and I love how you're being vulnerable too, because like I think everybody can relate. Like either getting a mean comment or someone says something mean. Like we all think about it, even though it's like, oh, we shouldn't think about it. But to hear like from you, and and I'm sorry I had to go through all that crazy stuff too. Like I was, I got a pulse in the ultra community, and I just thought it was unfair to say the least. With all that kind of stuff, especially a guy who's so kind and leads with love on your end too, to see you go through all that and then love yourself deeper at a time where everything seems super crazy. Yeah, it manifests in something super powerful, not just for the race, but like you as a person, as a coach. And I think that just says so much just about, not just what you accomplish, but where you're going to go. Like, I feel like that is probably like a bigger boost to performance than fitness. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I feel like it's always hard after the fact because I'm tying, it's easy to tie almost anything to it. And like one reason I'm trying to be so open about literally everything I did, like I'm trying to describe every single thing, like every training thing I did, every supplement I took, all safe for sport. But the idea being like, I want people to know when athletes do this, often they don't share anything.
Mm,
And I want them to see everything, partially because I don't know why it happened either. Like I think I know as a coach, but like, we don't know for sure. In these systems, there's 1,000 moving parts. What are the 200 important ones, and what are the 800 extraneous ones, or the ones that even held you back? We don't know. And so, I'm trying to be like really clear that like, hey, let's learn from this what we can, but also discard what we can't, and hopefully it pushes the science of the field forward. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think the way it applies to everybody out there is, yeah, Leadville course record might not be someone's personal thing, their personal goal, but like I never would have guessed I'd be the person to do this. I
mm.
mean, it's what my life as an athlete has changed overnight in a way that's wild. After 18 years of grinding at this sport, it's beautiful and it's exciting, but it's also just so through the looking glass and surreal. Because I never thought I was that guy. I didn't think I was that guy until the race started, really, and then I just
Mm.
like didn't let myself think about anything else. Um, but whatever your thing is out there, whatever your 1% shot is, like it definitely like it's always worth the shot,
Mm.
because like it takes a lot of shots sometimes. And for me, it took 18 years of shots to be like an overnight success when it comes to, how some people in the world think about me who maybe weren't my Strava followers, like Roger, telling me they believe in me all along.
Yeah, and I love that quote that you just said there was so good. It took 18 years to be the overnight success. Like that is so true because it's like, yeah, like yes, in the vacuum, it's like an overnight thing. You win Leadville, you get the course record, and the next day everything kind of changes. But it takes all those years of work and grinding. And I think, with overnight quote unquote overnight successes, people it's so easy to not see like the grind, the work, the ups, the downs, the failures, the progress. And I'm curious for you, like
Yeah.
and I love you being so transparent on things. It's funny because like me and like my coaches on my team, I think we've been like sending like your Instagram posts, like just being like, look at this, like because it's just been so like just useful and knowledgeable to do. But maybe like taking it from like the high level thing,
Yeah.
when you thought about like the course record and like what it kind of took to get there, like how do you kind of articulate that for yourself in a way where it's like what are the variables you kind of look at, like how do you kind of frame that training from like a kind of like a high level perspective before you kind of boil it down, like what are kind of the pieces that you kind of like target or the principles in like your training block to really lead to that 1% goal?
Amazing question. I think there's three things that I wanted to look at from the beginning of the year on. The first is just raw speed, running economy at VO2
Mm-hmm.
max, and how that then translates into my ability to run pretty efficiently at like the Z2 aerobic efforts that I'll be using in an ultra. That was the overarching core because Leadville is a very tough course at times, but there are times where it is a running race,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be paramount to success. And I think the person that beats my record is probably not going to be necessarily just they're not going to necessarily come from the ultra world. They're going to come from being fast as heck. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be the path. Number two is for all ultras being equipped to handle the mechanical load of it. So for this race in particular, there's Hope Pass out and back, which is very, very steep, like 1,000 feet per mile at very high altitude. So I need to be ready for the downhills, which I didn't train much. I only did a few sessions, but that's all it took at this stage of my career with not like, it's 15,000 feet or something of climbing and descending, the various numbers online. So it's not like UTMB or something where you need to start
Right.
sooner. I just started 3 weeks before. And then number 4 was I viewed it as a fueling problem. Like I needed to compete with the people historically who have tried this, who are some of the best ever to do it. I needed to be able to push hard, right? Because Matt Carpenter, who has the record, he's amazing. He's better than I'll ever be. In an honest fashion. That is not cutting myself down. That is not self-depreciation. That is a coach talking in an obvious manner. One of the best athletes we have ever seen, processed oxygen like a horse. I'm not that guy. But with what we know about fueling and what we know about hydrating and what we know about how the body burns energy, I knew that if I solved that fueling equation and pushed to higher numbers than we'd seen before in ultra running, I could push harder. And if someone's faster than you, you have to push harder than them to be ahead or just nail the logistics. So those 3 variables were basically all I really considered. Everything else I was like, keep it simple. We didn't do an aid station plan, didn't practice it, just took 30 seconds or less in every aid. It's like Megan's the best coach ever. She's just like, get in, get out. All those little, I didn't change shoes. Like all this stuff, like the good thing about coming from like the background I come from as a coach is I'm just like, I think people overcomplicate this almost exclusively. Everything is going to be simplified except those things that, I can control in the moment. And I'm not going to give away a second in the meantime.
So it's like basically like identifying the most important things, and then you think there's like a lot of like minutia or things that I think maybe you think people put too much stock in, kind of like if you're thinking about it in that way.
Yeah, I think it just adds up. Like, I don't know. I think these are psychological battles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I see chairs at aid stations, I'm like, I don't get it personally as a coach because I'm like, we're trying to move here, And
Yeah.
and aid stations for me, if they're an oasis to stop, I'm not getting up, or I'm not going to be the same athlete when I do get up. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, that goes for everybody. Like I just think that the more people let themselves conceive of that, the more they take themselves out of the moment, out of the zone, out of the grind, that these things are. And so that's different, like in multi-day events, or maybe if you're out there 30 hours, it's a little different. But I think there's a lot of athletes that are spending 20 to 25 hours on a course who spend an hour or 2 hours just chilling. And the problem isn't the chilling time. Like maybe that's okay. The problem is what happens after the chilling time. So you're
Mm-hmm.
chilling. This isn't chill time. We chill after the race and before the race and every other time of year, but not during the race.
Yeah,
It's
because
kind of
it's like
like, yeah,
different
sorry.
mindset.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it gets back to talking during races. Like, I'm totally supportive of people talking during races. But for me personally, I talk all the time. Like, during a race, I'm not talking. I'll say someone's awesome, but I'm not going to, like, chat about where we grew up. It's like, let's do that after the race. Let's catch up on Instagram Messenger. And that's a different approach for everybody. But basically, it's not because of the talking itself. It's because I need to embrace the mindset that this matters. This is important. And like, because otherwise I will sabotage myself by saying this is silly. It doesn't matter. And why should I do this silly thing that doesn't matter, which is all sports, which is most of what we do in life. And so for me, part of it ends up being like, all right, I'm the guy that, takes a lot of gels and doesn't stop at aid stations.
I love that, man. And I love like that whole kind of answer you just said there with like the aid stations and the talking. It's just like embracing the mindset that you want to have out there. And I can definitely just call in a few experiences that I've had racing where, I said an aid station or I start talking with someone, it goes from like a race to like, this is like, just a casual day out here. Not to say like not have fun, but, I can totally see how that mindset, it almost like primes the mind for like, what are you out here to do and that kind of thing. So I can totally see how that like sets a tone for like how you get out of that aid station for
Well,
sure.
yeah. And I guess part of it's just making races special in some way, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can run with somebody and talk every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can do basically everything about it. Is just what's fun about races is that you can enter this primal state where you give a lot of F's, you give a lot of fucks. I can cuss on here
Yes.
about 3 minutes, right? Whether you're finishing in 29 hours or 28:57. Like that to me is so cool because like obviously it's silly, but like that's kind of the most fun part of it is that you can fully invest yourself in something silly and go for it. So I think sometimes, especially people that might be at the back of the pack, don't give themselves that right to take themselves seriously during the event. And
Mm.
I'm like, it's so important, because like obviously the rest of life is telling us to downplay ourselves and to do all these things. I'm like, this is the best time where you and me and LeBron James are all the same, and you should go out there, you should bang your chest, you should get hype, you should have swag. Like, this is a time to not care about societal niceties of humility and like even kindness. Like, you can just be a character for a day and you're going to go back to life as a better person because you explored a part of yourself that like sports help us explore. And I think we all realize it as 8-year-olds, but sometimes as 36-year-olds, we lose sight of it and sports becomes just another performance review at work. When in reality, it's nothing like that. This is a game in the backyard with your friends. And like, be like that. Be like you were when you were 8. And I think whatever that was will probably be a place where you find like a reserve of strength that maybe you don't have in everyday life.
Dude, that gave me chills when you were saying that. Just because it's like when you think about a lot of even just great competitors, they kind of have this alter ego when they step out there, right?
Yeah.
They step into something else, like something like just like a different persona, and like that's a natural thing because you even said it. Like as kids, like we just inherently do that. We pretend we're Batman, or we pretend like we're Spider-Man or Wonder Woman or whoever, right? And it's just like fun, and it's like in that moment, like you can be that. And I love it. You also talked about like the back of the Packers too. Yeah, it's like everybody deserves to take the race seriously. Like everybody,
Yeah.
like doesn't matter. And I always like think it's like a cool enforcing thing to say like everybody is stepping on that same starting line. Like
Yeah.
everybody, like the pros, the first timers, the back of the Packers. It's like we're all out there. And so I love that you emphasize that so greatly.
Yeah. And just like, we're the way we've always framed it is everybody's an elite athlete. Like,
Mm,
the whole point of why we love coaching is like, what is possible at the edge for each one of us? Like, I don't care what I'm capable of at the end of the day. I care what like humans are capable of.
mm,
And like giving yourself that investment in everything you do as an athlete is so cool. Like, how often do people get to do this stuff? And maybe emblematic of the mental approach actually is before the race. So I've coached 2 Leadville winners. And what Claire Gallagher told me, who's, obviously a legend in the sport,
mhm,
she said, David, save your energy for yourself. But she knows like I love to be out there and just tell people they're amazing and say all these kind and wonderful things. And she also understood that that wasn't was going to get a record, right?
mm,
And so I thought that was interesting, because it shows a little bit of a window into her. But she's like the kindest person you'll ever meet, and in
mhm,
real life is just like will go. She gives life force to everyone that she's ever seen, and I'm sure listeners have met her and understand what I'm saying. On the other side is Jackie Manhart, who was the unexpected winner last year for women. And she gave me one piece of advice that I think show this is a mom of 2, just the kindest person you'll ever meet. And she gave me one piece of advice. She just said, David, here's how you pop a champagne bottle, which is what you get at the finish line if you win. And it was just a reminder of like, oh yeah, that was her way of saying have swag, right? Like her way of saying, it's okay to be that character here. And the fact that 2 champions said that rather than giving me any course advice or anything about fueling or whatever, I think shows that a shocking amount of this comes from giving yourself permission to be a beast,
Yeah, 100%. And I love you touch on that, like giving yourself permission, because I think a thing that can like often get people down is that voice in our head telling us we
Yeah.
can't be that or anything like that. Do you ever face that in a race? Did you face it during
Oh,
Leadville? And like, how did you? I'm assuming yes, based on your
yeah.
reaction. But like, how do you circumnavigate that? Right? Someone's listening, or maybe just give maybe an example from Leadville, like where that voice is coming in. Like, how do you not let that take like basically rid the permission that you have given yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've had that forever, right? Like, I'm an anxiety boy. I care what people think. I'm sensitive. I, you know, am so grounded in impermanence that
Mhm.
I can just lose sight of meaning in things that are silly, which is basically everything. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's part of existence. And I think for me, sports have been so magical because it does allow me to escape that in small little ways, not all the time, but more and more. And I think if you trace my athletic trajectory, I've gotten better and better and better at it. And then it took this year where at Leadville, I didn't have a doubt literally the entire time. I know that
Mm,
that's crazy. But I promise it's come from so many doubts and so many failures and so many of these issues. Essentially, I just had not just the permission to let myself be that way, but then the permission to not narrativize everything. Like there was no story
mhm,
going through my head during the race about how I was going to talk about the race, right? This is actually something from way back in the day. I used to have a blog, and back when everybody had blogs. This is kind of what got me started on everything. So like if you're out there and you want to write, just start writing. And it's like 2007, 2008, back when I was reading Anton Kropitschka's blog about Leadville. There's a whole blogging community. And I remember doing races back then. And so, I got into running and I was happy to finish 97th at a race in New York City or something like that. Like, it was a tough journey for me at first. And I remember being at like mile 2 of a 5K and thinking about how I was going to talk about the race. And I'm like, that is the most performance decreasing type of mentality, because it's not about that narrative. It's just about the experience, right? And it took me years to work through that and work and, therapy and talking to Megan and going through accidents and going through shit on social media and everything that came with it to get to a point that like, yeah, there was no narrative other than maybe the narrative of looking down at mile 90 and seeing that I had severe chafing on my situation area down there.
Oh
That
no.
was the narrative. I was like, oh, I'm worried about what that's going to be like later.
Yeah.
But everything else was narrative free. It was just, it was what it was. Ups, downs, I had just to say I didn't have doubts wasn't to say I thought it was going to happen. It's just to say I didn't think about the record really until it was possible to start doing math at the end.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that you explained that, because even just like thinking about in my head, like I've done that before too. And I think in
Yeah.
the age of like Instagram, social media, like where everyone writes a race recap post, like I think it's easy to like write the story before the story is actually written. And that
Yeah.
can almost like, not to get like, too woo here, but it almost like manifests itself because like our brain
Absolutely.
is looking for that meaning.
Manifestation, like obviously, has a lot of stigma associated with it, but anyone who's followed me, they've never seen me say I'm going to do something before, right? Before it happens.
Mm.
And I did it before this race, in a very public way on our podcast. And then I shared our first ever podcast clip I ever shared on social media was me saying why I'm going for the course record here. And I think that didn't cause it, but it was emblematic of how I was viewing the world, like everything. Because like I still thought it wasn't 1% anymore, but I did not think the percentage chances were as high as maybe they were. But who knows? Maybe it was still a 1% chance, and I just got lucky. And after the fact, it's really interesting to read some of the commentary from like journalists in the space and be interviewed and stuff, because like so many people are saying, this is wild and all of that, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, if you make some goal and post it on Instagram, I think it becomes a lot less wild, at least in my brain.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I love that you talk about like the importance of that, right? And I've read a few articles and listened to a few podcasts. You talk about like shooting your shot, putting it out there. There's something like tangible that when you put it out into the world that like almost makes it a little bit more real. And then like to your point, it's almost kind of been done when you explain it. Like it's
Yeah.
been done in the mind, and it's almost a lot more real and like I guess tangible as opposed to this thing in the ethers.
Yeah, and I mean, not if your goal isn't a course record, like the reason that it changed for me. So my goal when I got to the start line was not a course record. I needed that to motivate the process, and I needed it to say it, to show that I truly believed in myself. But Friday before the race, it was about the pain cave, right? I did not think about the course record. I thought long and hard about the sensations and data I was going to get from my body and how much I couldn't wait to see how I would respond in my first 100 when I was stripped down to that, right? And so that's kind of what I want everyone to do is like, yeah, you start from those big, lofty goals, whatever they are. Shoot some shot that is beyond your wildest comprehension, because it motivates that daily process day in and day out, makes life more purposeful, adds meaning to it. But once you get there, don't think about any of that. Don't think about anything external whatsoever. Think about the internal grit and grind. Like write it down. Write down that feeling that you're going to be in and say, that's what I want, right? Like, because once you gain power over that, that's when you become capable of things you could never dream of. That all of these things that your existence has taught you to shy away from, not only are they your friends, they're your very best teachers. They are the whole point of the sport. In fact, in some ways, those feelings are the biggest point of life itself. And anything that can give you those feelings, you should chase like as fast as you possibly can. And that's why I think ultra running can be so magical in ways that maybe someone that doesn't do the sport would never understand. But for me personally, like, 90% of my spiritual growth has come from athletics and processing it with Megan, who's the best partner in the world. Like 10% of my growth has come from getting hit by cars. But that's why the sport is so magical, and why I think everybody, no matter who you are out there, should use your body for something. Something that scares you, something that's hard. If you're 90, you should try to, bench press 5 more pounds than you can, or whatever it is, because at that place where your physical nature is the thing that is stripped down, like that is the key part. Your physical nature gets stripped down. You find out what you are behind the artifice of everything. And the cool part is what you are changes as you let yourself like succumb to that vulnerability. Like, and in vulnerability at its core, I think most people will find love. And that's why the sport can be so beautiful and go beyond toughness or carrying the boats or whatever you want to say about how some people frame that. I think what everyone is saying, we're all kind of saying the same things, even if we use different words, is that when you do that hard thing, almost always what's waiting for you at the edge of that vulnerability is learning that the vulnerability was love all along.
Oh man, dude, you got me chills like up and down the spine right now. That was so good, but man, and I love that you connected back to love, like what we were kind of talking about earlier. And there's almost like that love and pain kind of like coexist as one, and it's like because we want love, like as humans, like that's like one of the things we crave. That's probably like one of the root causes of pretty much almost everything, whether it's our childhood trauma, like why we pursue things. Like it is love in the end of the day, and to link it with pain, which me working with athletes, I think a thing that can be dangerous is like when people try and like prolong the pain. And of course, right, of course you want to with good training and durability and all that kind of stuff too. But it's almost that statement comes from an avoidance factor of it, or like not wanting to be in it. So I love how you talk about wanting to be in there, because when it's there, then it's like, oh, this is what I wanted. And there's that fuel that kind of springboards you forward into the pain cave, as opposed to like, well, my race is done, or here it goes, or here's that caption going to be, well, it wasn't my day, that whole kind of thing that you were talking about before.
Yeah. I mean, maybe what it comes down to at the end is just openness. And this is the ultimate expression of that feeling, right? Because when we talk about love, it is openness and vulnerability. It's impossible without those things.
Yeah.
And some of a spiritual teacher I really like, this is being relayed through a comedian that I really like, Pete Holmes. Pete Holmes talks about this spiritual exercise he does that I've always tried to do because of him. And I think he was taught by like Richard Rohr and other spiritual thinkers. And again, every spiritual system kind of gets at the same idea. So this isn't denominational. Like I totally support all faith systems or no faith systems. But the idea is like when you're in traffic, say, yes, thank you. And if you can do that, like it's the hardest thing in the world, but and I struggle with it all the time. But
dude, that's gonna be the hardest thing for me. Even just thinking about that, I'm like, wow, that would be really tough for me.
But whatever the metaphor is for traffic, right? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about this physical discomfort during ultras. Like it is physical brain traffic. If you can just say yes, thank you, everything kind of sets into place, and you can see love in just about everything, which is kind of why. I've never done hallucinogenics, but there's a reason that people that have that experience of having their physical artifice stripped away all come to the same conclusion, basically. Like literally anything, I've read a ton about it, and it's almost the same thing. Similarly, like, it's clear that people that do ultras are feeling the same thing, even if like the way we talk about it can vary a ton, right? Like I'm biased by maybe my own sources of language, right? My touchstones of what I want the world to be. Other people are biased by theirs. So like if someone comes from a military background, maybe they'll see a slightly different thing in that edge. But I think at the core, what they're saying is that like, it's an openness and vulnerability to the fact that things can be hard and that can be beautiful.
I love that, man. And I'm definitely going to utilize that practice a ton in traffic and also in the mental traffic as well. But I
fail all the time. I'm constantly failing. I mean, maybe the best exercise of all has been having a kid, because like, I mean, we don't know what we're doing as parents. He's 21 months now. He's amazing. But like our only rule is like no stress for him. Right. So no matter how we're feeling, no matter how much he was screaming, it's just like, look, we love you. I love you. I love you. And yeah, we'll validate his feelings and try to solve, but like, that has been the best exercise in that, because like, yeah, you can cuss at the driver next to you, but like, to little Leo, no, just love, And so, that has made me strong in ways that I never predicted as someone who never wanted to have kids, right? Like it was always my nightmare for a bunch of different reasons. But like, at the end of the day, I mean, I haven't talked about this on any podcast or even thought about it that much. Like none of this would have been possible without, that kid. I think partially because it made me push into an uncomfortable place I didn't want to go for all the same reasons we're talking about. But then partially because it taught me that like, yes, thank you can be something that's unconditional and uncompromising. And it took like loving something in, someone so much to make that like even a reasonable thought.
I love that, man, and I appreciate you sharing that. And it's so interesting because like you made that connection there. And even when you were saying like, oh, I never, originally wanted to be a father, and then you were a father and showed yourself, I was wondering if there was a link between that and being a father now to like maybe not wanting to do 100 miles and then like getting that click. So it's yeah.
Think about it. Like we had a kid October 2022. I
Yep.
did my first ultra over 50 miles when he was 6 months old. Then I did another 50 miler in December. I did another 50 miler this July. That's my extent of my non 50K history, but it all comes after him, right? Like, and I have less training time now. I have, more stuff going on. It's just kind of interesting to think about how like, the ultimate ultra of being a parent, like actually made me way more comfortable with the literal ultra of running long distances. Like I never could conceive of this stuff. Anyone who's ever followed me knows I always cut myself down on my abilities at this stuff. But now I'm like, well, I think the hard rock course record's doable.
Mm.
I think that probably has an hour or two still on it for me, maybe. But the point being, I don't know for sure. Just the same way it might be a 1% shot. But the point being, like, never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined doing 30 miles on those trails. So I don't know. Sometimes you gotta expand your horizons by force, I imagine.
Yeah, it's like showing yourself you can do the thing that maybe once you never thought was possible. Like it's like when you see it, like in this example, it's like showing up and being a great father. First of all, I gotta say, I always love how you're celebrating Leo on Strava and everything like that. Like it's just so awesome. But it's almost like seeing you. Hey, I can be a good father. I can show up. I can do these things. What else can I kind of do? Kind of thing. It's almost like the belief shattering feeds the other ability and confidence to shatter other kind of like preconceived notions kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Just like, I don't know. I mean, I love astronomy. I love like the stars and the cosmos and learning about, um, everything in astronomy. It's like one of my favorite like little pastimes is just reading every book I can on that sort of thing. And I think the reason I love it is just that it's so mind opening to conceive of something, so large and relatively incomprehensible. Even as we have all of the information we have, there's so many unopened questions that we'll probably never be able to answer. And I mean, I think like the cool thing about the pure openness and vulnerability is the same thing. It's like you look up at the stars at night, and if you think about it just a little bit, you have this like awe-inspiring reverence for existence. And so, trying to find that in everyday things because of Leo, because like kids make people feel that way, even though they're a little shit sometimes and you hate them. Very rarely, but you do sometimes. But they make you feel that same thing that the night sky does. And I think the Pain Cave and Ultras kind of makes you feel that same thing too. So essentially, you're training a muscle that, for me at least, needed to be trained. This is not something that came naturally. I'm not the freak of freaks that is a freaky freak from day one, right? Like it took me time, but you combine that with a lot of hard work, a lot of science, a lot of little things that went into it. And it's like, well, then, I love looking at the night stars. Like, so why should I fear, mile 94, right? It's just, it's no different. It's contemplating not only that it's beautiful and expansive, but also that, the universe is rapidly expanding and it's going to expand to nothingness eventually. Like, it's all kind of the same shit. And, I think that's derives a lot of power. And hey, if you're not into that way of thinking, that's exactly what, Christians are saying about, the meanings of existence too, or Buddhists or whatever, so like, I don't know. Ultras as a pathway to that is kind of cliche, but at the same time, like I think everything we do is a pathway to that because that's like kind of what being a human that's here temporarily is, if we let ourselves think about it. And ultras force us to think about it whether we like it or not. They force us to contemplate the icy cold hands of death.
It's so true because we've all been to that place. If you were listening, I have, like, where you're in an ultra and you're like, I definitely this I feel like either dying or at least I love my life so much that I'm not dying kind of feeling out there.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the cool thing about sports, I think, at the end of the day, is,
Yeah.
they're simultaneously silly and the most profound thing you do every day.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing, as you're kind of like, as you were listening through this, and I think there's so many just good nuggets on here. So I hope people are taking notes on this because I think what David's talking about here is like one of the most important things to nail down. How does this kind of relate to progress as an
Mm,
athlete? And the reason why I ask this question is because, you know, I do think like people can follow the training and follow the things, but do you think there's an element of like belief married with like tried and true like practical training? Do you like do you have to be open in order to make the progress, even if you're nailing those VO2 workouts or tempo
yeah.
workouts, the splits? Like, how do you see the marrying of those two with progress? Because like I work with athletes and sometimes I talk with athletes, and I think that can be a big hindrance, is just like
Yeah.
the non-openness. So how do those two things kind of, talk with each other and progress with each other to make progress as an athlete?
Yeah. I mean, I think the reason athletes can be like, if I was starting a company, I
Yep.
would hire like lifelong athletes above everything else, above, and I don't care if they're lifelong athletes at running or they're lifelong athletes at a hand cycle or whatever it is they can do, because at its core, what being an athlete is showing up day in and day out, building a wall that you'll never really see. Right?
Mhm.
You're building the Great Wall of China and you're just showing up with a brick, and that's all
Mhm.
you got. Sometimes the brick's a little bigger, sometimes a little smaller, but you got one brick. And athletes are able to be like, all right, it's not a wall, but it's a brick, and I have faith that it eventually will be. So, um, Megan and I were joking on the podcast this week that, like, I think sometimes people can look at my immediate training and be like, "Oh, that seems wild, right? He's doing lower volume than
Mm.
we've ever seen from someone maybe performing at that level." And I'm like, "Well, wait. So, like, yeah, I mean, I work hard now for sure, but maybe I'm a little more time limited. I'm older for sure. Can't do quite as much as maybe I did before. But let's go back to, I don't know, 2015. Go to my Strava and let's pick a random date. On the podcast, I said September 17th, 2015. That was random. Let's go to a different date. Let's go to um, June 11th, 2015. Just random. I don't know what I did that day, but I imagine it's a brick. It's a cool brick, but it's just a brick. And so, what I love about it is like what makes you keep showing up. Like, I think at some place, yeah, you can show up for transcendent moments and runs, but like it's not that common for me. I know I feel like a whole big old bag of dicks, a lot of runs. Um, and I don't get discouraged by it because that's part of the process, like you got to just like embrace it. Um, I don't feel like one of those people that's just prancing around on trails. I hate plenty of runs, like, and even the ones that I hate though, you find the moments in them that are interesting. And it's why I love listening to music and podcasts and things like that. Like I've never done a run in this entire training cycle other than the race itself where I wasn't listening to something, right? Like it's my chance to explore myself.
Yeah.
But then in the race, no, I don't need it. Um, and just over time, like you have to be open because you're showing up over and over, putting a brick in a wall you'll never see, that sometimes gets a sledgehammer taken to it when you get injured or you have some sort of life thing. And over, you're just like, wall gets hit with a sledgehammer. You come back a few weeks later and it's like, here's the smallest little brick. Here's the
Mm.
smallest little brick. And there's just so much faith in that. It gets back to what we were saying earlier about faith and openness. It's like you're being open to your own possibilities, not to your own possibilities of progressing, but your own possibilities of exploring. And like, I wish I could go back in time and tell that kid that was working in 2015 or whenever that this would happen eventually, because I think, he wasn't doing it for that reason, but I think it would have he would have been like, okay, time for the same bricks that I'm planning to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And, but I think it would have made him like get a nice little smile and say, yeah, a wall is being built. I might not see it for quite a while, but it's getting there in the background.
Wow. Well, man, I mean, even just like probably everyone listening, including myself here, I mean, that just conceptualizes the training, and you're helping, the person right now for where they could be in years, because I love how you talk about that, because in a vacuum, in one given day, it doesn't feel like you're moving the needle as much, especially if it doesn't feel good or anything. But it's that cumulative kind of drive that kind of, like, to use your quote before, builds the overnight success, like
And
that the years and years of work.
the body is not really capable of that much change over a short time. I mean, it is when you start out, but like even then, like I think the reason that maybe I'm a little bit articulate in talking about some of these feelings is because wherever you're at, I know exactly what it feels like, because like I did it as an adult, right? Like I went to college to play football. I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now. I was a sprinter. I remember my first run like a year later. So I got into cycling after, because I always wanted to do a sport for life. I just wasn't sure what it was. And I was sore for like 3 days from doing a 300-meter run walk thing, like
Mm.
because it's hard, right? And it took me time, and every single step of the way, it took years to reach that next little horizon, right? And then there's another horizon after that, and I hope there's more to come, and I'm going to keep chasing them for the rest of my life till I'm 100. I hope, whether it's in running or other things. Um, but like I get it, right? Like I get it so well, like, and I'll never forget that like this doesn't come easily for anybody. Whatever your brick wall is, it's a meaningful wall. And I think what I hope to inspire people with is that like, yeah, now I have this platform maybe as an athlete that I didn't before, but as a coach, I still feel the same way, which is that the point isn't like the end result of any of this. The point
Mm.
is the process. The point is the brick stacking. Like this is a win for the brick stackers out there. And if that's you, celebrate this not because of me or anything. Celebrate it because of what it means in your own journey. And so, yeah, just been stacking bricks, and I'm back to bricks now. 10 days later, putting another brick today, and I'm just waiting for Roger to comment on Strava to tell me I'm enough.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, dude, I mean, I'm getting fired up. I feel like I got to go stack some bricks right now too. So like
Yeah.
that is awesome. And go ahead. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I mean just the beauty of it is that like a lot of the bricks are pretty shitty. Like
Yeah.
I think the whole point is just to kind of embrace something outside yourself for the sake of embracing it wholeheartedly. Like kind of like a relationship in that sense where,
Mm.
you know, like it's a constant evolution process where you have to constantly recommit, and if that recommitment process can't happen, the relationship, no matter how compatible people are, is not going to work out long term, right? Like you have to constantly recommit through ups and downs and everything in between. And yeah, so like just constantly recommit every fucking day, like not, and it doesn't mean you have to be running. It just means that you have to be betting on yourself, and if you bet on yourself over and over and over again, you might find that one chip you were dealt with genetically becomes like the biggest stack at the table, or the biggest stack you could ever dream of. But if you're not betting on yourself, you're still going to have one chip at the end, and you're just going to be sitting there like, why didn't this happen for me? And it's like, well, brick stacking is also risk taking, at least emotionally.
Mm.
And so go all in, go all in, call your shot, do whatever that thing is. Because if you're not doing that, like sports is the place to do the things that might be too high stakes in life to do otherwise. Like, and you might find that on the other side of it, you're a little bit more comfortable in going all in on yourself in whatever it is you care about, not just the silly things that we do on trails.
Yeah, dude, I love that. And I love how you say, like, the brick stacking is risk taking, but it's like the risk worth taking. It's the risk worth taking, like, on yourself, and it's the long game, and it's scary and it's hard, and some days we might doubt ourselves, but
Yeah.
man, I love how much stock you put into this. Like, dude, I'm gonna like play this on repeat, like in my run. Whenever I have like
Well,
a shitty brick for the day.
it's like a podcast, like you're showing up over and over again,
Yeah.
just banging a drum, right? Like, and you're just like, oh, well, eventually this is going to resonate, and it has, but it's not with this idea that you're going to have the Joe Rogan experience or
Yeah.
whatever. It can't be because like you don't get to that point without like so many years of grinding. For me, it took 18 years of grinding as an athlete to have
Mhm.
this moment, right? And all of us have that within us. So, yeah, I mean, I think, um, I don't know. The wild part sitting here now is just understanding that like all of those bricks I was stacking for so long, all the failures I had, all the haters I had, whatever else it is, like I think it probably all was an essential part of the process for me to reach this point.
Mhm.
And this just makes it easier to see that. But even if it didn't happen, even if I DNF'd at mile 5 or whatever for a sprained ankle, like the same thing would have been true, that it was all worth it to like learn the lessons I learned, become the person I become, experience the pain that I experienced, right? Like all of that goes into it. And that's why I think running's the best sport in the whole freaking world.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I love that so much because it goes back to what you're saying. The process is what matters. And it's like, it doesn't matter if mile 5 DNF, obviously that didn't happen out there, but if
And
it did, it's just the process that's the win.
and I've been there. Last year my goal race 100K DNF'd at mile 11.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not talking out of my ass here. Like that was an essential part of the process too. Just as essential as Leadville. I'm just on fewer podcasts for it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. But like, I love how you like put so much stock in the process. Like that is incredible, man. And like, I think
And you have
anyone
to.
listening.
I'm 36 now. I'm 36. It took 18 years of bricks. Like if it wasn't for the process, I don't know how I would have kept going, right? Like I never would have like and how many people have jumped off that path and whatever it is in life, not just running, but like other
Mm,
things too. I know I probably have into things and like it's why, if you can actually give yourself over to that, like you never know what happens. Like a year is a long time, a decade is an immeasurably long time, and it's
mhm.
wild what any of us can be capable of if we just like open ourselves up to risk after risk after risk.
Yeah, it reminds me of a quote like I heard once that I always think about. It's like people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. And like
Yeah.
that all the time just like sticks with me because it's like the year you're not gonna like even like you said before, even just from fitness perspective, it's only so hard unless you get in the newbie gains of like making tangible fitness, but over like a long period of time, you kind of have that there too. And speaking of like, just kind of like the process and everything too,
Yeah.
like kind of rounding out the conversation, so I'm racing Javelina. I was looking at the entrance list and I did see David Roche on there.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me. Is that the next big thing for you? Like, how are you
Mm.
approaching this? This will be second 100 miler. Like, talk to me about that.
You breaking some ultra news here?
Maybe. I don't
Um,
know. I don't know if it was announced or not, but I saw it on the list. And so I figured I might ask.
no, no, no. I like it. I like it. Yeah. So 2 days after the race, I was like, I want to do another one because, and the interesting thing is, for me, it's a science thing, right? Like we didn't talk too much about the science. You can hear me talk about that on other podcasts. I love the directions we went on this one. Totally different.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of want to know both from a personal curiosity perspective, but then also a coaching perspective, if it was luck, or at least how much luck was
Mm,
it? What was that actual percentage? And so I don't know exactly when that's going to be. I'm hoping it's Javelina because I've always dreamed of Western states, but I need to make sure my body comes back and, I have a lot of metrics I'm going to be measuring. But like, I kind of just want to know as like my contribution to the scientific method. It's like, if right now I'm releasing all this data and all of these things I do, you know, how much of it is bullshit? How much of it is real, right? Like, I want to see, look, do it once, cool. That's clearly your best day. Is that's your fitness? Awesome. That's a fitness equation. But everything else and how it all works together and the equations and especially the fueling, can I repeat it? And
mm,
how many times will I need to do it to repeat it? Like maybe I'll never repeat it, in which case that's a good lesson to learn as a coach and as a scientist and in terms of the field. But I hope my contribution ends up being like I'm willing to put myself out there and get vulnerable to see, hey, what can we learn? What should we discard? Where is the actual edge? And so yeah, there was one option that jumped out in the US, but we'll see how it goes. If so, it'd be so fun to see you there.
yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all. I love that you're like kind of like getting a sample size, right? It's
Yeah, yeah.
we talk about scientific method. It's always about like testing multiple samples and have that in there. How are you approaching your training? Of course,
Yeah.
specificity aside, obviously Javelina is like flatter, hotter, kind of that stuff. But like the raw training, are you making any changes, or are you just kind of taking the same principles and then just adapting them to Javelina conditions of flatter, hotter, that kind of stuff?
Ride the horse that brought us.
Yeah,
Um,
baby.
no, I mean, I feel like Javelina probably would suit my skill set pretty damn well. Like
Mhm.
UTMB would suit it way less well, and I need to focus a lot more on specificity. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Like, I love our Vipa racing, and I love
Mhm.
the community. And even if I don't do the 100 mile, I'd love to do the 100K to kind of round out the quadfecta of like 50K, 50 mile, 100K, 100 mile. Um, but but part of me just wants to know whether I can just do this again, right? Like, um, yeah, I mean, I'm always intrigued by people that come and knock off that like one good one. But I want to knock off 10 good ones before I'm done.
Yeah.
And I'm 36, you know what? And we're about to have kid number 2 coming up here at the end of the year. So,
Congratulations.
oh, thank you so much. Megan's the best wife, partner, coach, smartest person I ever met. Go, actually, hey, if you're out there, you're still listening, go follow the Huzzah Hub on Instagram. It's
Yes,
her
definitely.
new research thing. It's the coolest thing in the world, and she's changing the freaking world with it. And it all informs what I do. But, you know, I'm painfully aware of father time. I think about death all the time, right? Like, so I also understand as an athlete and as a coach that, like, I'm not operating with 20 more years to explore this. Like, I don't have another 18 years of training to see what happens with all those bricks at the internationally competitive level. I can still be age group competitive, and I can still try to improve in various ways. But, like, you know, my brick stacking is on the, you know, I'm past, it's like when you turn 50 as a human, you're past halfway. I'm past halfway in my international athlete brick stacking, though I promise I will be stacking bricks until the day I die.
Heck yeah.
And, you know, why not? Why not? Like, I have nothing to lose, because the same thing that brought me to Leadville means, you know, whatever brings me to the next race, like, I guarantee at that start line, whatever, like right now we're in a little bit of the afterglow, but by then we're not going to be. And people are going to, have started to, you know, the people that have always said shit about me are also going to be saying the same shit again. And they're also going to be saying it was a fluke or whatever, or, you know, who knows? And yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I mean, I want to, for the same reason I did Leadville, I kind of just want to know, like, what is it? What's going to happen? Maybe I'll crash and burn, in which case I'll be the best cheer squad in the world, watching every other athlete come through, especially Joe.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I will tell you, man, on a course like Javelina, that I think, like you said it best, like I would agree. I think it's like well suited to like your strengths and stuff like that. I think, I mean, as soon as I saw that name up, I think I texted one of my buddies. I was like, I think we got a new contender to win this thing out here. So, I'll also,
Well,
I'll also be
hey.
betting on you as well.
Hey, I mean, I know it's not Matt Carpenter, but, like, you know, it's not the Rinvoud Unbreakable, but hey, there's a course record at Javelina too. So, you know,
Exactly. And
why
hey, I
not?
mean, like,
Just get in the habit of calling shots? Why not?
there you
No,
go,
just
man.
JK. But, like, at the same time, you know, like I said, sports is the place to be that person that you aren't, right? Like, you know, and I love that about it. And I love Javelina because it is competitive, and it gives you an opportunity to, you know, fully immerse yourself with other people. And, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm still, you can probably tell, like, I'm at the point right now where, I just am intensely curious about, like, yeah, I predicted my Leadville time to the minute, right? Like,
Yeah.
my pre-race spreadsheet said 15:27, but still, even then, I just kind of wonder, is it luck? Is it not? Where's those percentages? And until I know that, I don't know if I can actually, like, say how I might be able to become a better coach because of this, you know, outside of the experiences I had. So, you know, scientific experiment of n equals 1. Let's use the scientific method on it. We need to get some validation studies going.
Oh, well, dude, I'm excited to see you tear it up out there and go through the study out there. And, you know, on behalf of, you know, everybody in the sport, aspiring coach myself, as an athlete myself, and all the athletes listening, the athletes you coach and touch through all the podcasts, all the media that you do, all the social media, everything like that, man. We thank you for putting yourself through these experiments, for being so open, because, you know, it not only makes you a better athlete and a better coach, but also makes all of us better athletes and coaches, because, you know, you putting yourself through these things like helps us as athletes to progress and learn about ourselves and stack the bricks ourselves and also try new things. And so, man, thank you for showing up for Javelina, and I'm excited to see it, man. I'm excited to race with you out there. Can't promise I'll be keeping up with you, but, like, I will tell you, man, I'll be rooting for you every step of the way, and it's gonna be fun to see out there. And, you know, since we're at the tail end of the podcast, before I ask my last question, anyone who please follow David. I'll put the links in the show notes of his socials, website, all the whole 9 yards. I'll also put a link to the Huzzah Hub, which he mentioned is Megan's News Research Hub. It is awesome. So that is in the show notes as well. So anywhere, please follow David on all the interwebs. And
way more important, I'm jumping in. I'm cutting you off. This is my podcast now. This is, you know, like, you ever saw that movie with Tom Hanks or whatever?
Yes.
It's like, this is my boat.
I'm the captain now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, before this podcast, I got to, you know, catch up with Joe and just talk to him a little bit about, like, some training stuff we didn't get into. This is the coach you want. So if you're out there and you're on the fence about a coach, reach out to Joe. Like, this is your guy. Like, you can just tell, like, yeah, this is an athletic. I've been talking about myself as an athlete, but like through and through, my goal professionally is to be the greatest coach I can possibly be. And in that process, I've learned like how to spot, I think, the people that have the curiosity, care, and brilliance to like be the best coach in the world themselves one day, you know? And that's my goal, is like to see other coaches exceed anything I could ever do. Joe's that guy. So if you're out there and you're thinking about it, you're on the fence, reach out to Joe.
Oh, well, David, wow. Thank you so much for that too. And I will tell you this too. I mean, even just knowing a lot of your athletes personally, like they say a lot of the same things like towards you and Megan and the care that you have from athletes. So to hear that coming from you, an exceptional coach, athlete, person, podcast host, father, husband, whole nine yards, that means the world to me too. And that's why, I mean, same to you, man. I put my stamp of approval on everything that you do out there. So same, please follow along David and Megan and their incredible journey and work that they're doing. And that means the world to me, David. So thank you so much for that, my friend. But before we end too, I got to ask you the last question I ask every single guest on this podcast. So I can't let you off the hook here. My podcast, obviously, as you know, is called Everyday Ultra. The whole ethos of our show is to help listeners be better ultra runners every day. And you've given a wealth. I mean, just so many tips on this podcast. But I'm curious for you, what can our listeners do every single day to be better ultra runners?
Fuel your races. I'm going to just, like, I've talked a lot about the mental side. So love yourself, all that, you know, touchy feely stuff. Like, that's first and foremost. But, you know, the absolute revolution we've had in endurance sports, the advantage I have over Matt Carpenter, over athletes even 2 or 3 years ago, is that I have been able to reach levels of carbohydrate fueling during these events that allow me to run more comfortably. And I think what people sometimes miss sight of is that what you conceive of as an endurance limitation, especially when you're starting out, I know for me, was always a fueling limitation. And once I kind of cracked that code via research and looking at other sports and coaching athletes, everything clicked into place. And so, yeah, you need to train, you need to do all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, you need to learn how to take in 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour during your races. And if you can do that, your body is capable of things that are wild. Because maybe the final experience that I was just reflecting on yesterday for the first time that I'll leave people with is coming back through Twin Lakes, mile 62. I've never run this far, right? And I was always making the jokes I made earlier that, like, I'm not born to run, I'm born to eat Fritos or whatever, you know, right? Like, it never felt natural to me, even as I got better and better and better. It just never felt super, super perfect, like some people describe. But as I was running through Twin Lakes and the crowd was cheering and I was feeling fantastic, I remember thinking, like, oh, we are meant to do this. It took me that experience to really understand that those evolutionary arguments that people make, yeah, they might be a little misplaced in certain like anthropology things that might not hold true forever. But it's obvious that humans are designed to do things that other animals on Earth are not. And it took me doing it to actually know it. But most of all, the only reason I was ever able to access that when I wasn't before is because I've able to fuel my body in ways that I never have before during events. So, you know, the metabolic limiter out there is one that's just beginning to be understood, but it applies to everybody. If you're chasing the cutoff, you can go 2 hours faster if you fuel the right way. And learning how to do that, practicing it, reading our articles on it, listening to our podcast on it, like, that approach is the number one lowest hanging fruit to make you so much better, so much healthier, especially for female athletes, and recover faster, adapt faster, and, you know, whatever your personal chase of history is, to smash it out of the freaking park.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And yeah, dude, I've loved listening to your episodes and the articles on the high carb fueling too. I've been tuning in and learning. I credit you because I did a race last weekend and I tested it out. I credit you to actually putting through the test and it went great and it was awesome.
Hell yeah.
So
That's
I
the
credit
best.
you. So I know what David's saying here is totally true and it's like incredible advice. And dude, thank you for being for leading the ship into this like awesome new area for us here that's like leading to performance for all, which is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, I think there are people out there listening that are bristling against that because there's a previous understanding of how physiology works that involved maximizing fat oxidation.
Right.
And we've learned that's not the way it works. Unfortunately, it's weird. And it points out that there's a battle of ideas happening all the time. And I love it. Like, I'm going to be wrong on some of the things I do now because, you know, that's the nature of being at the cutting edge of things. I love it though, because that's where evolution happens. But in this one place the evolution has already happened. And there are dinosaurs standing on the beach, looking up in the sky, seeing a massive freaking meteor and being like, oh, this is fine. And actually, you should just be doing 30 grams of carbs per hour, or no carbs at all, or whatever people argue. Don't be a dinosaur. Like, trust me, at the elite end of all sports, this has happened. It's trickled down to all levels, and it applies to everybody. We all have the same GI system in terms of like whether you're 5 feet tall or 6'5", you spread it out. It's like the size of a tennis court. Like, you know, it's all similar. Our hydration needs are very different. Our fueling needs are shockingly close during exercise. So fuel the fire, and you'll find that like that fire can burn hotter than you ever imagined, and hotter than you ever imagined in an evolutionary sense. Like, you can tap in to what humans were doing 5 million years ago in ways that like I didn't learn until I actually did it.
Oh, it's so good. Now I've never been more fired up to eat more carbs. Like that,
Hell
like
yeah. Hell
that
yeah.
was that was incredible.
That's my legacy. That's my legacy. I'm the slurp boy. I'm the slurp king.
Slurp King. I saw you put that in the caption. I was like, yeah, man, you're slurping down all those carbs, man, and it led you to have the Leadville course record, man, and can't wait to see you slurp down more calories and carbs at Javelina later this year. And David, dude, thank you for this incredible podcast. This was amazing. You are amazing, my friend, and seriously, this was such a treat, man. So thank you for coming on, man.
Well, love you, Joe, and love everybody listening. Woohoo!
Yes, love you too, man. Talk soon.